Hey, welcome to Candy Barone. Candy is one of our previous money cartography students, and she has very kindly agreed to share her experience of money cartography with you. So if you know a bit about money cartography and you're kind of on the fence, it sometimes helps to hear about other people's experiences. And when I say on the fence, what I mean by that is using your intuition to kind of work out how you're responding to what Candy's saying. So if you're not sure whether you want to join or not, does this feel good to me? What is my intuition telling me? So that's the intention of this space that we've created. So Candy, could you share a little bit about who you are and what you do with the people that are watching?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you for inviting me to share my experience. I am a leadership development expert. I am a consultant, trainer, coach, executive level coach. I speak internationally. I am a Amazon bestselling author. The bulk of what I do is really growing and expanding emerging leaders. And so leadership is this idea of being a choice. And so I work with entrepreneurs, leaders, executives. I work with organizations and cultures. Everyone that I work with is that one-to-many model. So I don't do a lot of one-to-one solopreneurs. I do people that have influence over organizations, cultures, communities, or some other type of group or something where they are looking to lift and raise other leaders as they are elevating themselves as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Can you share a little bit about your journey with finding human design and gene keys, and also how you found money cartography as well?
Yeah, so my journey started, I guess now it's been about 5 years. It was May of 2018. Ooh, time flies. And I was running one of my mastermind groups. I do a lot of work in group capacities, like I said, that one-to-many model. And I had a client of mine that brought it up in one of our group discussions. She said, "Have you ever heard about human design?" And I said, "Well, I've heard about it. Sure, it's not really for me." And she, being the beautiful manifestor that she is, she kept informing and sharing and opening up this space that my little light went on. And this fire started to really stoke. I was going through some very challenging things in my business. I had a very difficult client that had caused a lot of upheaval. I was starting to work with a spiritual teacher that was really pulling me out of my comfort zone. So there was just a lot of transition. And there was something about what she said around human design that really connected. There was a congruency for me that said, okay, there's something about this, and I couldn't shake it. So I found myself going down a rabbit hole, which led down another rabbit hole, which led down another rabbit hole, and being, I went a little too deep, too fast, to be honest. When I first started human design, I was obsessed with it in a way that was like, I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know the how. And I think that's my open head and ajna. And I actually got to a point where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I pulled it out. It got a little too intense for me. It got very overwhelming. I knew enough to work with my clients. And then over the period of the last 5 years, I've been in and out. Wow. And then last year, again, had a very significant transition, which is also really prevalent in my chart. A lot of cycles, a lot of transition. I was going through some very difficult times in my business where I had taken on a partnership. I thought it was the right fit. And something about it actually took me back to old corporate energy I had when I was in my corporate career. And I was like, why is my nervous system outside my body? I could really feel a like out of body experience, not in a good way. Wow. And there was some voice, some intuitive hit that said, go back to your chart. Because I hadn't been in it for a while. I had put it on a kind of a back burner. I was in and out of it here and there, but I wasn't really contemplating it anymore. I wasn't studying it. And I went back to my chart, and immediately I went to a path that was very clear that said, you're not here to do somebody else's system. You're here to actually disrupt the systems. Like, that's a lot of what shows up. I was like, oh, no wonder why this doesn't feel well. And literally days later, I wrote a letter, pulled out of it, went into a 2-month sabbatical that it ended up guiding me into that. Coming out of it, this energy around, this is the work I need to be adding in. I was already doing it with my one-on-one clients. So I was kind of doing it quietly because I didn't really want to talk about it a lot.
Mm.
And something about what happened last year, going back into my design, getting pulled out in a sabbatical, I came out very clearly knowing I needed to go deeper again, which led me to you, ironically enough. I started to watch those that were having conversations on Instagram, and some were pulling me out and some were drawing me in. And somehow, as the universe is designed, you came across my feed as someone to follow. And there was something about the energy of the way your posts were, what was going on, that I started following you. And it was a very, very short period of time before I enrolled in one of your programs and found myself in money cartography.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the right thing, right time. In fact, I even laughed when you had shared that you had the open enrollment, because like, of course, universe, I just asked for that and you just delivered it. It was like literally the response to something I put out there. So it's been a very guided journey when I've allowed it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very easy when I've allowed it. It has caused me a lot of angst when I tried to control it and thought it was going to look a certain way and I was going to do a certain thing with it or not. And so it's been an interesting 5-year journey for sure.
Fascinating. Thank you. And just for those who are watching, Candy is a 6'2", so she's the same profile as me, and she's an emotional authority. Is that right?
Yes, emotional manifesting generator. Yeah,
manifesting generator. So I'm a generator, and Candy's a manifesting generator. So that manifesting energy is the kind of difference between our energies, just for that background. And thank you for sharing about the fact that I just appeared in your feed. And the reason I say that is because I've obviously done a lot of work around Gene Keys and around my prosperity sequence, which has allowed me to attract a lot of clients and a lot of abundance. And that, what you've said, really is a real life example of when you're in your brand, you're truly in the energy of your brand, people find you. And you don't even know how they find you. There are so many clients that I can kind of count as friends now, and I think you're one of those clients who have just found me, and I can't remember when you appeared in my world, and I just came across your feed. And it's when you're in the gift of your brand and really your whole prosperity sequence, that clients are attracted to you because they can feel your energy. So you're not going out there looking for, I didn't think, oh, Candy's exactly the type of client I need, she's my ideal client. When you're focusing on you and being in alignment and in your energy, that's when perfectly aligned clients like Candy find you. And you also want to be attracting the kind of clients that get the most transformation out of what you do. So that's kind of how that dynamic works in real time. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I'll have to go back because I can probably pinpoint when I found you, because I guarantee I saved a post, because the people that speak to me, I have a folder of things that call to me, speak to me, whatever. So there are somewhere along the path, there is a post I probably saved that caught my attention. But yeah, it like literally just dropped in. It was not a I'd never seen you, and then I couldn't stop seeing you, and you were just front and center, and it was there, and it was before I followed you, and it was insane how it happened, and very synergistic, very easy. And again, like I said, I just asked for that. No surprise, that just showed up. The universe does that all the time, right? When I'm very clear about what I need, it very clearly manifests. So,
well, exactly. And that's another thing that we cover in money cartography, that manifesting style. How do you manifest? I've got a very different style to Candy, so that's the kind of one of the things we go through. So money cartography is about attracting abundance. So if we just focus on that for a moment, can you explain some of the challenges that you may have found around attracting the kind of abundance that you were wanting, or the kind of tools that you've used?
Yes. And I would say I didn't have language for it until I did money cartography. And then I was like, It has been an interesting revelation, to say the least, because while I had dabbled slightly in Gene Keys, I will say you probably have introduced Gene Keys to me more than anybody. The level of simplicity, and I know that's your 23, but the level of simplicity that you are able to walk through those sequences, especially the prosperity sequence, really has helped me see some things I didn't know. And so I would say lots of challenges in not always having the right clients. Like I said, even when I first got introduced to human design, just to be fully transparent, I had a lawsuit in my business because it was the wrong client who played very victim. It was just a lot of energy. And I was actually physically ill signing the contract with her in the beginning, but because I had convinced myself it was a contract paid in full, I needed the money to come in. It was some of those stories and blocks. What's interesting is I actually had an entirely different level of healing going through money cartography than what I was initially thinking was going to happen, which is the case anyway. I was also doing another abundance program, so I was doing them in parallel. And what was really interesting is I had some very clear downloaded insights around that space. When I think about that pivotal moment and 5 years ago, the introduction to human design, my whole path, all of what's sort of happened over the last 4 years, because I was introduced to you last year, not without great purpose, because when you look at my sequence, my prosperity sequence, 3 of my 4 spheres are all around the shadow of codependence. And when I look at what's gotten in my way in my business of my abundance, it has been when I have tried to carry or enable my clients and trying to fix them and make myself a more anchored root versus what is my natural. And I would get a lot of resentment and frustration, and sometimes that irrational anger that comes with being a Manny Gen as well, of, oh my God, why are they so needy? Yet that was what I was creating, instead of the 6-2 line that says, I want to be able to guide you, teach you, and then I want to let you go and set you free. And so it's been really, I didn't have the language for how it felt until I did money cartography, to be perfectly honest. And to go back and see those patterns since then, to see the difference in what I'm calling forward in terms of my clients and the kind of relationships, they are night and day difference. I've loved my clients. I've had really, really good clients, and I've had some clients that have gotten to, there's been an entanglement, and I've had to understand that, to take responsibility for that for the earlier years of my business. And so, the first 5 years, and now we're looking at these last 5 years, I've had my business for a decade now. It's been really interesting to see how the more I understand human design and my gene keys, the more I can recognize those patterns and open myself up to something different so that I can be more in the gift, which is the sensitivity versus the shadow side. But it was really interesting for me, because the first time I saw my prosperity sequence, I was like, in fact, I had a friend of mine that knows gene keys quite well, and she laughed. She goes, holy cow, you have some. I said, yeah, I have a theme, and I have it shows up, like I said, in 3 of my 4 spheres. And then obviously it shows up in my activation sequence as well. And so it's a very powerful, theme, which now, since doing that work, shows me it's not even just the codependency between my one-to-one relationships and my clients. It's also with the way we look at our systems and our environments. And I'm seeing a bigger pattern emerge for what I get to actually teach in my vocation and some of my other things as well. So it's been really fascinating to be able to retrospectively look back without judgment and actually have a brand new insight and awareness around the path I've been on and the why, when some of it has felt very challenging, or I have struggled, or I have been frustrated, or just not sure I want to stay in my business. And I'm like, oh, because I can see exactly where that was tethered. Like I can almost map it out. And it's been really eye-opening.
Fascinating. Thank you. And you do often see a theme. You can see the theme running through your human design chart, because we look at that as well. That is reflected in your gene keys as well, because mine is patience or lack thereof. And once I started to understand that and flip the story, then I saw the difference in the kind of clients I attracted. But let's face it, in my bank account as well, because that's
Sure.
one of the things we want to see. That's why people are attracted to money cartography, is those concrete results in your bank account. So obviously, without going into detail, but in a general sense, have you seen that kind of material change as well?
Oh, for sure. I actually, both through my sabbatical period and then coming out, I was doing a lot of work on me versus in my business. And I tell people, I'm like, I've had, and since the most abundant period of my business, focusing more on understanding my own wiring and energy and design than I have actually trying to make things happen. I'm really good at the hustle. I'm really good at I have my root is my most defined center. I have really good adrenalized pressure. I know how to get stuff done, and I can go and just keep, and I bring things to completion. I have two of the channels in your root to your sacral. Like I have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I literally took myself out when I started money cartography. Like I said, I was doing another program. I would literally spend days in money cartography and this other program, which is they balance each other out. But I would, because what I loved about it is, I wouldn't just watch the video, or I wouldn't just go into the training, or I wouldn't get on a call. I would spend 6 hours on one, because I would peel it back and I would be in that space of deep contemplation. And I have 6 volumes of notebooks that I'm taking, going through the work that I've done with you in various programs, money cartography being one of them. And I had shared this with you before. As a Manny Gen, I don't always finish programs when I start them. I get what I need, I'm complete, and I'm ready to move on. And another rabbit hole calls my attention, right? Your programs, all of them, and money cartography especially, I have done every single piece of all of the bonus content, I find myself really enthralled with where it guides me. And what's been interesting is everything that hit in my business, especially when I was really deep in money cartography, was not one thing that was on my radar, wasn't anything I prospected. And it was kind of like me dropping into your space. It literally was a referral that came out of nowhere. It was something. It was like a LinkedIn. Somebody's like, hey, I know I don't ever comment on your stuff, but I see you want to come do a keynote and a training for us. And it just kept dropping, and it has been continuing to drop, to where when I think about, working with someone, that when we talk about, those energetic minimums that we create, my energetic minimum, I got very clear on what I was no longer available for. I have more than tripled my energetic minimum. And
Wow.
so, because I was in the belief, because of the nature of my business, doing the kind of leadership work I do, that I had big hits and then I had big lows. And I had big hits because I get these big corporate contracts, and then I would have things that would filter in. But my consistent cash flow has been something that's been a struggle for me, more so because of other people's interpretation of that, such as trying to get a loan for something, or trying to do, because while I have a very successful business, my income had come in very big, large contracts at a time, that then, that has all changed for me. I have a very consistent cash flow that's created this very clear residual, counted on, and I'm still getting those big pops, and things just, they leveled out and they elevated. And so, like I said, in doing that work, I was able to very clearly reset my energetic minimum for what I'm available for. And it got me very clear as I started to look at things, and I'm like, because I have the open ego and I have a bunch of other things, that get in my way around my own worth and needing to prove and wanting to give away the farm, which I have done.
Yeah.
I have charged almost nothing for my stuff. And then I get really resentful or really frustrated and angry. It's not resentful. It's really, if I want to call it what it is, because I'm like, these people aren't showing up or they're not doing the work. And this is so high value. And I feel like I'm giving everything and I'm getting paid nothing for it. And I'm like, well, you're the one that put the price that. So it was this constant fight that I got very clear around. And in fact, I remember doing one of the first things I did in money cartography was I had a new referral that came to me and I was meeting her for coffee. And I'm like, you know what? This is absolute BS that this is what I'm charging for my 3-month container for a one-on-one client. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, that's it. I am changing the price right here, right now. I'm over it. And I'm like, I literally in the parking lot said, I have been saying this. I've been saying this. I doubled my price, walked in. She asked me, she's like, what does it look like? I said, I didn't even hesitate. I said, this is the price. This is what it was. She goes, great. When can we start? Send me the invoice. I'm ready tomorrow. That happened the same thing when I put a large contract in front of one of my organizations and they were like, well, this is more than what we thought. I'm like, it's my price. The next day I had another organization. Basically, it was almost the same contract. She's like, oh, of course. Here you go. Signed it and I get paid and I'm working with it. So it got me into a space to start to really understand my value. And when I could connect it back to specific things in my chart, whether it be my G center, whether it be, my throat center, whether it be the natural language or just things that I bring to the table. And then interestingly enough, even money cartography sort of guided me into, because again, once I go down a rabbit hole, I can't stop. I started to do additional digging into my planets and found out that even like my Mercury, my conscious Mercury is, the thing that we're here to teach and communicate is actually around leadership. I have 31 as my gate. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not, because at one point I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work with leaders. This work's too hard. It's frustrating. And then I'm like, no, I do. And I want to do it in a way that says I'm here to disrupt the systems. My vocation is about disrupting these systems. It's about getting us into a space to redefine, and it's all the work that I do, redefine what leadership is all about. And I have the alpha channel as well. And so they're like, there's all this leadership energy, and then there's and when you start to see the dance between the different nuances in your chart, I honestly, Becca, and this is actually gonna get me emotional for a minute. And I've told you this in other capacities. And yes, I do agree. We've built a friendship because of this. Your ability to translate human design and gene keys has been life altering for me. And I literally am crying right now because there has been questions I've had. I could not, no matter where I dug, I could not find an answer that hit. I couldn't connect puzzle pieces. I still was in a space of something's wrong with me. This is why am I over here? Why like that? And again, the Manny Jen energy and the 6-2 of I feel flaky. I feel flighty. I feel like I'm always changing. And what I realized is I'm not changing direction at all. I'm bringing in all these pieces in a way that lets me deliver a message around leadership very differently. And that has given me such permission to be able to say, I have very clear masculine strategic frameworks. I work with people to get them clear. And there's been this other dance of things I bring, but to be able to overlay that with my interpretation, because that's the other thing I think that's been really beautiful about what you do I'm seriously crying, in money cartography and your other programs, is the fact that you not only encourage, you invite, but you almost insist that we find our own interpretation through contemplating human design and gene keys. And I have had some other people that like, I followed them for a hot minute and then I've had to stop following them. So I'm like, stop. It feels very kind of contrived or boxed or stuck, or I've never felt that with you. It has felt very open, and it's been an invitation along the way for you to take whatever is hitting or resonating for you and leave the rest. Come back, contemplate it later, but like find your own interpretation of what human design and gene keys means for you. And I don't know if you realize just how powerful that is.
No, thank you for reflecting that. I hadn't. I actually hadn't. And I think the reason that happens, thinking about it, is because I refuse to accept human design as a dogma. I respect the integrity of the information. That's very important. But I feel like to make it more accessible for people, we have to, what I intended to do in money cartography was give you the information, but also empower you to say, well, how does it work for me? Okay, now I know. And that's my 6-2. That's my 6 line saying, here are the tools. I'm going to make you independent. I'm not going to make you reliant on me to feel good. You're going to be able to use this information on your own. So thank you for that reflection, because that really was, and I think that comes from a space of when I first found human design, I found it overwhelming and I thought it wasn't for me. I thought it was just for other people. So that's always been a kind of undercurrent in what I've taught. And this is just the beginning. Money cartography is the beginning of lots of other avenues opening up. I use the phrase, what if, and the phrase, get curious, experiment, have fun with it. It's not supposed to be something you need to go away and learn by rote. It's, okay, well, what's possible for you now that you know this information? So thank you for that reflection.
Absolutely. And I mean, money cartography led me into other things to do work with you, even on deeper levels. And so it really was an invitation, all the way from the minute you dropped into my feed, all the way through the process, even now, even in some of the work that we've done. And it's incredibly beautiful, because I do think there's people that have had, in fact, I have a client right now who surprisingly got into a space where he said human design, and he didn't use the word dogma, but he talked about, he felt like he was in a cult because I'm like, okay. And it took me a minute, because I was like, I don't even understand how that's possible. And I was like, no, I understand how that's possible. And I think about this fact that we're not needing any other dogmas. We're not needing these rules. What we need are to your point, and this is the 6th line for both of us, is that you need the tools, you need the wisdom, you need to know how to come back home to yourself, to know how to access these tools for whatever path you're being asked or guided along. I mean, I think about one of the things that I really like in the work that you do, and this has been a very spiritual space, without feeling like the spiritual woo-woo that people want to associate with spirituality, because spirituality is a personal path, right? And so I think the way you teach money cartography, the way you introduce, because I also like that it's not, let's just spend all day talking about the profiles and then talking about like you move in and out of things that are relevant for the focus of what you want to pull out, the specific, money markers, or the specific lines of abundance, or the specific things that when you can understand them and then bring them in and say, how does that translate into my own spiritual path of discovery and curiosity for myself? It's a really effortless, really easy, very simple, and just beautiful way. And I know you probably have experienced this too. I've had a lot of regret with programs that I've invested in, where it has been in my opinion, a bait and switch, or it's been gross, or it's been this like pushing a dogma down. I have been so wildly over the top, like exponentially delighted that not only did I get what I thought I was going to get, you took this to a place that was completely something different. And so you gave and gave and gave and gave, and the amount of resources that alone, I mean, honestly, if somebody's like struggling with whether or not the resources you provide, like the actual physical resources that help guide you through understanding, your gene keys, for example, that in and of itself is worth the cost of entry. The tools I have from you, I mean, if you can see, I have a pile of like all your resources, and then I have all my notebooks. But there's such a wealth of valuable content and contemplation and inquiry that you've done, that you've translated into a very simple way to allow others to do the same, where it was the best investment I could have made. I say that not just because we're in this conversation, but I say that because, like I said, it's one of the only programs I've ever completed all the way through. And it left me wanting more, not I don't feel like I was complete. It left me wanting more, because I'm like, man, I want to know how I want to know more about which again, led me down, however many other things I've done with you. So
I love that. Thank you. I'm so enjoying this conversation. Thank you for your generosity and your openness of spirit in this container. So to that point, yeah, with money cartography, it's designed to be a map. That was my intention. So I didn't want to teach everyone the whole human design system, the whole of gene keys, the whole of shifting ancestral patterns, because that's a whole other rabbit hole. That it's designed to be, okay, well, shifting ancestral patterns, for example, that's one marker on your map. That's a landmark. Your money markers in your chart are another landmark. Your prosperity sequence is another landmark. So I'm really happy that you've reflected that back to me, because obviously the word cartography means map. And so it's done its job. And I know I shared with you when I named the program, I did struggle a bit because people say, oh, you should name a program according to the result that you get. And some of them I do, you know, in Launch Blueprint, it's named for that.
Right.
But this container was brought to me by my spirit team, and I talk about that in the last module about how to talk to spirit about your abundance, make that really accessible. And I was flicking through a human design book and I stopped and the word cartography jumped out at me. So I said, well, that's it. So it's literally done its job in that way. So I share that to anyone that's watching. Don't feel bound by the rules of I should do this or I should name it that. It's about what comes, taking the inspiration that comes.
Well, that was one of the things that actually drew me in, was the name. Truthfully, it was very clear what I was like, it's a map. And instantly that grabbed my attention. So yes, there's a reason that those things download in, and the fact that we think it's got to look like somebody else's space, or we got to do it this way, or that's part of one of the things. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I think is a big block for most of us, is this, you know, depending on where our open centers are and where we're taking in that, you know, information from other people and amplifying it and thinking it's ours and thinking we've got, I mean, there's just all this stuff that gets jammed up. And for me, it can get really overwhelming because I have a wide open head and a wide open ajna that I have to be really, like, I really have to feel it. I cannot think it at all, because if I think it, I'm going to get sideways fast, because then it's the, well, how do I know this is certain, or how do I know this is right, or how do I know this is the path, or how do I don't know this person, how do I know she's legit? And that never even came in. The name brought me in, and the energy behind it was just very clear. It was a really easy yes for me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And just finally, before we move on to the last couple of questions, I do provide a lot of resources, workbooks and that kind of thing, but also I teach from my experience. My 6-2 brings you all of the experience. So I am not hesitant about recommending somebody else's book or somebody else's work, or quoting from someone else, giving them credit. Of course, I'm not I don't have any tightness around that, because if I can bring my students something that's going to help them, and I know that it's something that helped me, then why would I not share that? So there is, you'll find as you go through the program, there are kind of, you know, I recommend this person or this person or this person for kind of some deeper exploration. So thank you for bringing.
Well, yeah, and I actually took one of those, and that was the other program I working with that person, because it was actually, you introduced me to her, and doing the work in parallel made so much sense. And I have that same belief, and so I think that's also why you resonate so much for me, because I mean, I've told you a million times on my podcast, I think I've mentioned your name several times and told people to go follow you and check it out, because the level of work you're doing is, first of all, there's enough for all, and your interpretation and my interpretation are very different, and you're doing very specific deep work in spaces. I'm doing more of an overlay to connect some dots in some different things. And so yeah, I love that. I love that you're so generous, not only with the resources, but also with what's influenced you and where your experiences have come from. There's a huge generosity in that, and how you deliver your content and the resources, for sure.
Thank you. Okay, so the last few questions I have for you, because I could talk to you forever. Every time we talk for hours, so I want to make sure that people watching get the answers they need. So what, if any, hesitations did you have about enrolling?
The only hesitation for me was a financial investment, because I'd already just invested in a couple other things for my business, and that lasted for about a half a second. The other hesitation for me is just in learning, and this has been a big learning for me just in general over the last 18 months, well, through COVID, has been my emotional authority, because I get really excited about something. I'm like, yes. And I'll sign up right away. And then I have buyer's remorse badly the next day. So I purposely gave myself 3 days. I gave myself a rule that said, I'm going to check in all 3 days. And if I can't shake this, if I can, and it was such an easy yes, because I'm like, oh my God, all I've done is thought about it. All I've done is gone out and look at that landing page. All I've gone out has been like, okay, you're not saying yes yet. You have to wait till tomorrow. You told yourself you're going to wait this out. You're going to practice your authority, blah, 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 blah. But I was so ready to say yes. And every time I went in there, it was such a clean and it was such an easy yes, but I forced myself to wait. So I would have zero regrets. That was the hardest part. The hardest part was me not jumping in when the shiny squirrel spoke. And the thing that's interesting, and you had talked about this a little bit in money cartography, but I have to say I actually experienced it. My yes was very different because I waited. I showed up in the program very differently, because even though it was a yes the whole time, had I signed up and said yes in the beginning, I'm not sure I would have done the whole program. Had I said, yeah, I really can say this very clearly, that my yes was there was a very different energy to my yes in making myself wait 3 days. And then I was actually to the point where I'm like, really, I don't want to wait a week for the next one. I don't want to wait. Like, I really wanted to get in faster. And then I got behind because life happened. And I'm like, stop. Everything is, and it was kind of that patience of, you don't get, now you're going to have to, like, there was just this, but I was so committed in my yes, that, because I'm someone sometimes that doesn't like when I have to wait. I have a patience thing too. And I'm like, I don't want to wait for and then I'm like, okay, this is taking too long. And now I'm on to something else and I'm bored and whatever. I was so committed that I was like, okay, then I'm going to do the free this that you offered, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to go find out a different path. And I kept doing work in it, even in between the modules and when they came out. And when then like I said, I got into life and got behind, then I was like, oh my God, now I'm going to plan out a full day so I can go through this here. And I'd go through and I'd do work, and I'd like really give myself a day where I'd go through like 2 or 3 videos. Right. And so it was like, I say that because I would not, my level of commitment would have been very different had I jumped in when when I was like, yes, yes. I'm like, no, wait, which I hate to do. And wait. And waiting my 3-day grace period. And like, I couldn't wait. I was so excited to finally like sign up, that then I was just like, oh, I'm really ready. And it was so different, but I was like, okay, we're going to practice our authority.
Damn that emotional wave. One, I have sacred authority. So I really envy, I'm not saying that lightly, I do envy people that have sacred authority. You can just say, yes, I want power in the now. And I have no power in the now. So I love it. Oh, thank you. Like, you know. And that's it's interesting that you said that you did the other work around it as well. So if you're considering money cartography, I'll often do a 3-day free live stream beforehand to give a taste of my energy, and those are all included. So if you enroll this time in March 2023 is the next enrollment, you'll get 9 days of bonuses. You'll get unconditional money, which is 3 days, Mapping Millions, which is 3 days.
Which is awesome.
Thank you. And the one I'm just about to do, which is called Made of Money, which is all around Gene Keys. So
I'm signed up for. I've done money cartography and I'm signed up for it, because I guarantee, whether all of them, she brings similar, and every time, because she's a 6'2", the information goes deeper or changes. Like, I could not absorb Mapping Millions enough. And that was a free live that she did that's embedded in the money cartography, but it was like, I have a notebook just on that. I mean, it was just so good. And what's great is you get different ways that it connects and resonates, and it's all coming from your experiential knowledge and wisdom. But yes, I'm signed up for the upcoming one, because I just, again, like, but there's more.
And the other thing that's exciting about this round is one of our previous students created a meditation after doing money cartography around contemplating Gene Keys. And that's such a gift. And she's very kindly offered it as one of the bonuses for money cartography going forwards. And the previous students will get it as well. So Candy, you will get that. But that just made my heart so happy that she was wanting a way to have a specific meditation for contemplating your gene keys. So that's a bonus in this round.
That's exciting.
Makes me so happy, so happy. Okay, I promise I won't keep you much longer. I could talk to you forever. So who do you think money cartography is great for? Who would you recommend it for?
That's a great question. My general thing is everyone, but that's never an answer. Honestly, I think money cartography is really good for is someone who is leading themselves. So someone who is already doing some level of work to get curious around how to elevate, and I'm going to use my language around this, elevate their leadership, elevate the way they show up, elevate how they get to put in service their value. And the reason I say that is, and whether or not you've got a lot of understanding around human design or not, you do not need that. You do not need a lot of understanding around gene keys. In fact, I would actually say you might be at an advantage if you don't have super intense, because you won't have all that dogma stuff that you got to like unlearn. I think either way, it doesn't matter. You're knowledgeable of human design. You're not knowledgeable. What I think though, is that you have something that you feel is very clearly calling through you, and you feel like there's been limitations or there's something blocking you from standing in the fullness of how you get to show up, thereby blocking what you can bring to you from a prosperity and abundance standpoint. And I don't mean just money.
Mm-hmm.
And although that's a lot of what you talk about, I'm talking about abundance in its fullest form, about living the life that you really want to live. And I would say the other person is those that we need to stop looking for our purpose outside of us and understand you are your purpose. And when you can understand your own energetic wiring, your hardwiring, your energetic blueprint, when you understand how you are designed and what you have as natural gifts, superpowers, magnifiers, amplifiers, like you have actual markers that is like key language, that is energetic codes, that is how you're here to show up and offer that. If you can feel that on some level, like you're like, something keeps moving me forward. There's this whisper that keeps tapping on me. Something I'm doing right now doesn't feel fully aligned. This is the space for you. I really, really believe that, because abundance comes from that place of alignment with yourself. And so a lot of what money cartography, at least for me, what it did was it gave me a path back home and the language to be able to express myself along that path. And because I'm someone who very clearly leads myself, I take responsibility for I know I'm here with great purpose. I am a great purpose. And I've got a calling that just keeps, I needed something to help me get out of the structured way we've been programmed to think, the conditional way we've been taught, the linear way. Yeah. I needed permission to get off the linear path. And this is much more of like a helical, spherical. It's not linear, and it's not meant to be. And so if you're open to that, or you're just like got an insatiable curiosity, you're like, I don't even know what the hell they're talking about, but this just sounds really cool, it's also for you, because I guarantee you'll not be disappointed. If you like to jump down rabbit holes, that's my favorite people. If you are a rabbit hole jumper, this is also for you.
So yeah, and another thing to know about this round is, so the course is on demand and you get a new module every week. And there is live support. It used to be on Facebook, but I'm actually going to do it on a Slack channel this time to take it completely off that energy of social media. So that'll be an interesting difference. Okay, Candy, thank you so much for sharing your experience so generously. I love you so much. And thank you for giving everyone that's watching an insight into this program. Please share where people can find you as well. What's your Instagram? Where do you hang out on socials? Where can they find you?
Oh, well, thank you for that. And it's been my honor and just blessing, both in getting to know you and being part of these programs. and being able to share my story with us, because I really cannot sing your praises enough. So I just love that I get to like love on you. As for me, the best places to find me are LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. On Instagram, it's Candy_Barone. On Facebook, the best place, you can either find me at Candy Barone, or you can find me at Coach Candy Speaks. That is my actual leadership page. And then on LinkedIn as well, you can find me. There's not a lot of Candy Barones out there, so you can find me. I am out I am posting stuff daily. There's never a shortage of stuff that's out there. So
wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you've shared. I love you very much. And I will speak to you soon.
That sounds great.
Bye.
Bye.